So I'm listening to you talk about the value of friendships and the idea of friendship sort of as a means to better politics, right? And we can talk about the value of friendship and friends who can lift us up and offer us support, who can be there during the tough times in which we find ourselves, in offering the sort of emotional space to process everything that is difficult and that it comes to bear, and we feel alone and we need someone to talk to about these things. But I also want to talk about, or get you to expand on the idea of the homegirl intervention as a means of accountability. Because also, we have to understand that our politics need to be challenged. Our politics are incomplete sometimes. We have blind spots that we have not been introduced to, that we have a insufficient analysis of things. And that leads us to say things that are fucked up.
Yes, indeed.
And none of us are exempt.
Yes.
But what I would think is that the value of a true friendship would be that you would have someone to call you in to be able to tell you the ways in which you fucked up.
Yeah.
And so if you could talk about the ways in which that process should work.
Yeah. So Mychal is my brother. He's one of the most important writers writing today, and one of the reasons that I value his work and his friendship is because I think he is a young man committed to actually living out an anti-patriarchal life in as many ways as he can, and I think that's hard to do. And one of the things that I think about that, Mychal, particularly when I read you and interact with you, that I think gets at the core of your question, is that we have this mistaken belief that the moments that we change the most are because of our own insight, or often because we're reading books, which I think, based on our talk this morning, we know we need to do more of. But I want to add that for me, some of my greatest moments of change have actually happened relationally. And that sometimes I was at my most dangerous when I had a great idea, but I didn't actually know how to talk to people. Like, I had some sense and respect the stories and the experiences that other folks are bringing to the table. So the thing that I love about friendship is that it forces us to actually relate to each other, to actually see the impact of our thinking on other people that we care about. I grew up as a church girl in the Deep South in a very conservative family. And so I'm very clear that my thinking, for instance, around homophobia and around how to be around gay folks and around how to be an ally for queer folk, that didn't change because I read it in a book or I heard it on a television show. It changed because I had the opportunity, as I left home and moved out into the world, to build relationships with queer people who put up with me. And I want to be honest about the fact that they did. They put up with me. But also want to say that we cannot keep thinking that our politics are most radical if they are not also deeply relational. And part of the problem with folks who are very invested in being woke is that you have all the right ideas, but you have no sense of what it means to actually live those ideas out in community with real flesh and blood people who are struggling every day to try to figure out what the politics look like on the ground. And so for me, it has been like, I was very comfortable in the space of the know-it-all because I feel like, as an only child, one of the things you spend time doing is just reading. You don't have, like if you don't have lots of friends, you spend a lot of time alone, you just read. You don't necessarily figure out the relational piece very well until later. So for me, I knew a lot, but I didn't necessarily know how to live that in community. And that's what I think good friendship does, is these are people that you come to know and trust, and you work from the assumption that they love you, so they wouldn't be trying to tell you things that would harm you. And I am very clear that all of the best parts of my politics today have nothing to do with me being smart. They have everything to do with the fact that I have friends in my life who tell me I'm awesome and amazing and sexy and beautiful. They also tell me, girl, you wrong. That ain't quite right. Read this, think about this, ask yourself this question, call me back when you done thought about it. So we need both. We need a balance, people that celebrate us, people that hold our complexity. And sometimes I can call my girls up and go, I know this how I'm supposed to think about it, like as a good feminist, but I'm not there yet. And they can say, all right, girl, well, like, what do you need to get there? Or I'm not there yet either, but let's commit to doing the work to get there together. That is the way that real change happens. It isn't just these moments of personal epiphany, and very rarely is change so deeply academic as we like to think it is.
In your book, in one of your books, Eloquent Rays.
Yeah.
You have so many books. No, I love it. You talk about the way that you don't have white women friends. Right.
All right, Mychal, here we go.
Well, no. Well, this is what I want to get to.
Yeah.
You're talking about that sort of deep, abiding, loving friendship. Like you have relationships with white women.
Sure.
But you would not categorize them as friendships in sort of the way that you would with your homegirls, black homegirls.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to you.
Yeah.
What would be the process, because accountability is such an important part of this, as like thinking of friendship as a political project, right, or a piece of our political project, and building coalition, and building better understanding of ourselves and the people outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
Building friendship across differing identities in which the identities come into conflict with one another vis-a-vis power and oppression.
Yeah.
Right? What are the ways to build that kind of friendship that also include that mechanism of accountability?
Yeah. That's a deep question. Yeah, let me own it. I was like, no, today I don't have to say anything challenging, and here goes Mychal. One of the things I talk about in Eloquent Rage is that because I grew up with, I grew up in a predominantly white space, and I was identified as academically gifted very early, which meant in a racial stratification context that I was moved out of classes that had black children and moved into classes that mostly had white children. So it meant I spent all of my school time every day with mostly white peers, and I was typically one of only a few black children, which is a very common story. And so part of what happens is that I both make friends with lots of white girls, and I spend lots of social time with them, and I'm ostracized by black kids because, they say, oh, you're acting white. But the other thing that happens is that then getting up close and personal with white people is always a mixed bag, because they may be perfectly lovely people, but sometimes the people they connected to are not. So it meant things like I would get not invited to birthday parties because my friends' parents didn't like black people. Or, it meant that like in the 1980s when the first Bush was running for president, all my classmates in the class polling election voted for George Bush 1. And when I said that to my grandmother, she was like, do caucus, girl, do caucus, right? And so you coming out of a totally different political context than everyone. And those schisms don't matter when you're 8, but when you're 18 and when you're 28, they absolutely matter. I'll be more transparent and say, one of my, I don't, how Facebook goes and your life changes. And so first there's a period where you're connected to all your high school friends. Then you realize many of those people are trash, and then you defriend them all. And so this happened recently where when Trump was elected, one of the few folks that I'd remained Facebook friends with came on my page to say that she had voted for Trump because she thought he would help the African Americans. And, I was like, the world is falling apart, the sky is falling, it's actually falling this time, and you have helped it, and so what in the world? So she defriended me. 2 days ago, she friended me and said, I don't want to lose friends. And I just have her sitting in the queue because I'm petty. But also, because here's the thing, she was a high school friend and a middle school friend that I actually really like. She's very funny, and as a person, on a strictly human level, she's cool. But the problem with having white girls for friends is what happens when their often really fucked up politics intrude on the conversation. And it's not just true with conservative white girls. Liberal white girls get the shit wrong. And the thing about my friends is, You know, it's like if I don't know you, you don't know very much of my stuff. But if you're my girl, then you know, you get to know all the things. And I'm not interested in shallow connections with people. I want to be able to be my full self. And so the thing that I worry about, and the thing that has made it hard for me to have friendships with white girls as an adult, is can we have the intimacy that is required? Can I feel safe with you? What happens the moment that you violate it? And more times than not, the white girls that I thought were cool, I found out something terrible and trifling about them that they weren't trying to be accountable for. And then what do I do then? What kind of labor do I have to do with you? What kinds of things do I have to dismiss? And I don't want to have to do that kind of labor. Not when life is hard as fuck anyway. And part of what I think about in terms of friendship is us showing up for each other. So I want to say that what I have committed to, you know, after I started writing about friendship, I wrote about, you know, not being friends with white girls, and people were like, but I would love to be your friend. And I was like, all right. You know, I have a couple of, you know, white homegirls who I knew in childhood who I have said, it feels to me like you are trying to do work in the world so that you are not a problem and you are part of helping us change things. And so I'm cool, like, I'm willing to go down this path of trying very, very slowly in limited context to build with you. But I admit that it's a thing I struggle with because of pain, because I don't want to be hurt, and because my issue isn't that I don't like white girls. I mean, I love those white girls in the Babysitter's Club books. My issue is that I'm actually a fairly trusting person, and so I'm always shocked when I find out that my sense of you was wrong, that I gave you the benefit of the doubt and then you disappointed me. And until white women can sit with the weight of that the friendships that y'all all be running around telling your friends that you have with black women, you don't know my friend. Y'all be calling them your friends and they be with their black friends like, we ain't friends. Like, that's actually what's often happening. And the friendship that y'all claim, I think you only get access to it if you understand the magnitude of what is being entrusted to you. And that means that we cannot think of friendship as a category pure of politics. It's not. Every relationship we have is political. There are political resonances of it, and that means that we have to exercise a level of care when we recognize the gravity of what we're trying to do. So I'm not against friendship across difference. I think it's the thing that will change the world. But part of what I also tried to say too is, but our friends have to hold our tough parts. And my tough part is me and white girls, you know, I feel like I gave them my entire childhood, and I felt like at the end, it cost me a whole lot. And part of the journey of learning to love myself has been, I don't give to friendships that cost me more than they put in my coffers. Yeah, so I'm working it out, y'all. Don't feel sad. We cool. Yeah.
I wouldn't try and put you on the
You
spot.
did. You
like
you
that.
did it. Yes, he
I
was.
was thinking more broadly about all differences, and you know what I'm saying?
No, he
I
wasn't.
try to say, I was using that as the example,
No, he
as an
wasn't.
end. You know what I'm saying?
I don't believe you.
You know,
Michael, because Michael does things like this. But
because I'm a troublemaker.
He's a troublemaker. But look, let me say this too, right? And I want to even own the hypocrisy. I'm very thankful, you know, like as a straight girl, right, that most, I would say, and I do think that these friends would claim me in public, but most of my close friends are queer women. And they have helped me to refine my politics. And so what I want to say is I don't have this right across the board. That I do have friendships across difference that I think are real and significant and that are about a commitment on my part to changing and to being willing to grow. And so so for those of you who are like, nah, like, you know, multicultural and cross-racial friendships are actually a part of my life, I think that there are people who have figured this out better than I have. And for me, the place that I have figured out the sort of cross-difference friendships have really been around thinking about issues of sexuality and around having folks in my life who, you know, I mean, look, I was never a rabid homophobe, but in the end, if you're queer, people's degrees of homophobia, what difference does it make, right? But what I have had the benefit of is just really dope queer folks who saved my life love me and have helped me to get my feminist politics to the place where they ought to be. And I'm very thankful for that. And because of that, I think that maybe a place where I could grow and give, I'm 37 now. So let's say that by age 50, I will try to see if I can find some white girls that I really want to rock with like that.
It might be better by then. It might be better. Thank you, Brittney. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.